Hello, world. I'd like to speak to you today about prayer. And I'm going to read some verses out of the Bible to you. I know a lot of people sometimes say it's so hard for them to understand the Bible. And there are a lot of things in there that are hard to understand and that we still don't understand and I don't understand. But just read it. You'll find something you can understand. And I am going to show you something here today that I think you'll understand. This is from the book of Revelation. Now, a lot of people think, oh, that's a hard book to understand. Yes, because it's prophetic and it's talking about the end times. It's talking about the tribulation. There's something good in here I want to read to you. This is the 5th chapter of Revelation, first 8 verses. Then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, "Who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll?" But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth could open the scroll or even look inside it. I wept and wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside. Then one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals." So this is talking about God sitting on his throne, and he has a scroll in his hand that John, who is having this vision, wants to read. And no one can be found that's worthy to open the scroll. And so John is so upset he cries. And then one of the elders that's surrounding the throne of God says, "Oh, don't cry. We found someone worthy. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David." He's talking about Jesus who died for us, and that's why he's worthy, because he obeyed the plan God has for his life, and he died and took our place. And verse 6 says, "Then I saw a lamb, looking as if it had been slain, standing in the center of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. He had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth." And the horns represent strength. "He came and took the scroll from the right hand of him who sat on the throne," which is God. "And when he had taken it, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb." Now listen very closely to this. They're talking about the elders. "Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of God's people." That to me is the easiest thing to understand in this. In heaven, there are 24 elders that are holding bowls made out of gold. I don't know how big they are, but they're bowls made out of gold, and they contain incense. And what that incense is are the prayers of God's people. So our prayers that we pray to God, they're in the throne room, in bowls, as incense that God can have permeate through him constantly, our prayers. I read a book recently about prayer, and one of the things it said is prayers never die. They're eternal, or they're actually everlasting. Your prayers, they don't die. This, I think, shows, well, what does God do with them? He puts them in a bowl, and they're incense. Why does God do it this way? I don't know. This is something he has in heaven. But they're always before him. They don't die. You might die, but your prayers don't die. You might forget what you prayed, but your prayers don't die. I have a grandmother that died in 2012. She was almost 99 years old. She's prayed. She was a prayer warrior, my dad's mother. She prayed for a lot of people and a lot of things, many of them her family. I'm sure there are prayers that she has prayed that have yet to be answered. Even though she has now gone on to her eternal reward and she's resting in the arms of Christ, her prayers, even though she's not still physically praying them anymore, her prayers can still be answered. Our prayers can still be answered. I experienced something similar to this several years ago, and I thought I would share it with you because I realized one time, I don't think I've ever told anybody this but my parents. And I think this is really going to bless some of you, because boy, did it bless me. when I was in Sunday school, I didn't really start going to church till I was, well, 7 or 8 years old. I became a Christian when I was 9. My parents didn't start going to church till I was closer to 11. And so when I was probably, I have this somewhere. I have this little thing in my house, and I don't know where it is because I packed it in a box with some stuff I want to keep, which is just about everything. So I want to keep everything. So I have no idea where it is right now, but I still have it. And so I'm going to pretend this is it. It's not it, but let's pretend. I was in Sunday school. I'm guessing I was about 12 to 13 years old. I may have written a year in it. If I could actually find it, then I'd really know. But I know it was probably middle school age. So 11, 12, 13 or something I was. It was a preteen Sunday school class. And the teacher that Sunday was teaching us about prayer. And we were young, and so she was trying to help us learn to pray and have prayer become a habit. And so she was having us make prayer journals in Sunday school that day. And so she had brought construction paper and notebook paper and a stapler and these Christian little stickers. And we cut them in fourths. So it would have been about this size. This is a makeup palette, but it's the right size. So that's what I'm using it. It was probably about this size. Mine was orange construction paper. And inside, we also cut the notebook paper into fourths and we put it inside. And the construction paper became the cover. I put a little sticker on mine that had an owl. And then I wrote some prayer requests in it. And what the teacher told us to do was when you pray, and most of the time, most kids, even when you got to be teen, if you prayed at night. You know, no, I lay me down to sleep. You know, we all said that prayer. But then we got to where we prayed real prayers. And we said, God bless mommy, God bless daddy, God. You remember when we used to do that? People used to do that with their children all the time. Even people who weren't saved sometimes did that with children. And as you got older, you prayed more prayers. And so the teacher said, put this by your bed. And when you pray at night or anytime you want to pray, get your little prayer journal. It will help jog your memory. And if you, because, you know, sometimes when you go to pray, you think, oh, what can I pray about? You just get a mental blockage and you don't know. So she was using this as a memory jog. Get your prayer journal, open it, see what you had written, and it will remind you of what you're praying about or remind you of things. If you run out and you think, I can't think of anything else, you can get your prayer journal and look in there and see. And she had us, because it already had lines on it, she had, you know, write your prayer requests and then draw a column next to your prayer requests. So when they're answered, you can check it off with a pencil. And then you will know those were answered and you don't have to go back and keep reading those. Well, I used that little book at that age, maybe only 2 or 3 times. And then it got stuck in my drawer of my desk or something. And I actually forgot it. I forgot it existed. I did still continue to pray. I just didn't use that little journal. And about 20 some years later, I had moved. I was in my 30s. I was in a home of my own. And I still had that desk because I had taken my furniture with me. And I was looking in that drawer for something, and I pulled that little thing out, and I said, oh, look, it's my little prayer journal from Sunday school when I was preteen. I remember this. Oh, I remember the Sunday we did this. This was so neat. And I thought, what did I write in this anyway? I didn't remember. And I really have quite a good memory, but I just had not used the actual book enough to remember what did I write in it. And I got, what did I write in here 20 some years ago? Now, if you were 12, 13 years old, or you had children that are that age, or grandchildren, or niece and nephews, you know any children at all, or even if it's just you, what would you have written? If somebody handed you a little notebook with paper in it and said, write some prayer requests that you want to be praying about at 12 or 13, 11, 12 or 13, what would you write? What do you think I wrote? What would you guess? What would you guess would have been my prayer requests at that age? Now, I didn't have a lot of stuff to pray about personally because I hadn't really gone through much yet. Now, there are people who are really young going through a lot that had some prayer requests, but I had a good family. I had enough food. I had enough clothes. I was not ill. I had a fairly good life at that time. There are some people that young that might have quite a hefty prayer request list. But I really didn't have anything real personal to pray about. And I couldn't remember what on earth did I write in here. So I opened it up and I started reading. And as soon as I read the first one or two that I had written, I said, oh, I remember now. I remember what I wrote. I remember. And then I started reading. And I realized that one was answered. That one was answered. That one was answered. That one was answered. I went through my list. Nearly everything I had written in this book, God had answered. And I'm telling you, I got serious chills reading this because, not because God had answered the prayers so much, but because of what the prayers were. So let me tell you, I wrote it in here again because I don't want to leave any out. Let me tell you what I wrote in here at 11, 12, or 13, that what I wanted God to do. Now, I numbered them. Number 1. Save my mother's parents, my grandparents. I called them Mama and Papa. Save my Aunt LaVon and her husband. Save my Uncle Chink and my Aunt Gail. Save my Uncle Troy and his wife. Save my Uncle Bunker and my Aunt Joyce. Save my Uncle Robert and my Aunt Sharon. See, these people, as far as I knew, they were my family. And I didn't know if they were saved or not. Now, you may have been one of these people on this list, and you may say, now, wait a minute, I was a Christian. Well, maybe you were, but at my age, I didn't know. I thought you might not be, and you might need to be. All I could see was you didn't come to church at that time, and you didn't talk a lot about God, so I thought maybe you needed to be saved, so you were on my list. When I opened this up and realized I had written all my family's names down here to get saved, and I could check almost all of them off. My grandparents, my mother's parents, they got saved as elderly people. My grandparents, when my mother was a young girl, they were alcoholics. They weren't only alcoholics. They owned a tavern. They lived in the tavern. They drank all the time. My mother was raised in an alcoholic home. It's very traumatic for her. They got saved. My grandfather got saved just a few weeks before he died. He turned his life over to God. He didn't ever want to hear about God. He didn't want to hear about Christianity. He would tell my mother, you can talk to me about any religion, any other kind. That's fine. I'll hear about anything, but not Jesus, not Christian. I don't want to hear that. Don't even talk to me about it. But my mother wouldn't quit praying for him. She wouldn't quit talking to him about it. A few weeks before he died, he was in the hospital. He had emphysema. And he asked my mother and father, would you pray for me? And the pastor we had at that time was there also, and they prayed. And our pastor said, I have never seen an older person receive such a transformation at end of life like this. His whole countenance changed. His whole everything changed. And he told my mother, you wouldn't give up on me. Other people would, but you wouldn't give up. You wouldn't give up, and because of that, I'm going to end up in heaven, and we'll all be there together one day. It's because of you. I got out when I realized almost all these were answered. I realized, I had written a column beside your name to check off. I was expecting it to be answered. I got a pencil real fast 20-some years later, and I checked off this one. I checked, this was answered, this was answered, this was answered. They got saved. You see, what I wanted more than anything when I was that age was my family to be together. I wanted you to be with me in church. But more than anything, I wanted you to be with me in heaven. I know that's my grandmother's most urgent prayer that she had. All the family that she had, she wants us all there. She wants us all in heaven. It reminds me of a story of my niece when she was real little, my sister's little girl. She had learned to walk. She could barely talk. She could only say 1 or 2 words at a time at that point. And she lived with my sister and my parents. And my brother was also still at home, and I was living in my own home, but I would go over to visit all the time, just play with the niece, and visit my parents. And so I was over there, so there were 5 adults and this little toddler. And my sister and my niece were playing. My sister was watching her play in the little bedroom. And my mother had gone in there to speak to my sister. And my niece, me and my dad and my brother were sitting in the living room. And my niece went out and came to me in the living room. And what she would do when she wanted something, she was fair. She loved everybody, and she would take turns. And she would see something she wanted, she couldn't reach it. She would go find, and we'd be 5 or 6 people in the living room. She'd scan everybody's eyes and pick. and she would head for you with a beeline. And we used to make a game of it, saying, "Oh, here she comes. Who's she gonna pick? Who's she gonna pick? Who's she gonna pick? Oh, it's you. You're the chosen one." And she came to me that day, and she said, "Come." And I thought she wanted something off a shelf or something. So I went with her, and she led me into the bedroom where my mother and sister were. And I said, "Why did she bring me in here?" I said, What do you want? Your mommy and your grandma are in here. Why are you?" And she wasn't paying attention. She left the room, and she went in the living room, and we couldn't see in there, but I could hear her say to my brother, he said, "What do you want?" And she said, "Come." And when she did that, we said, "Oh, we know what she's doing." She was putting us all in one room. So she took my brother in there, and he came in, and he goes, why did she bring me in here? There's a whole bunch of people in this room." She left again, went in the other room, and he said, "What is she doing?" Well, we had figured it out, and we said, "She'll get Dad next." My dad, which is her granddad. "She's putting us all in one room. She wants us all together." And so he said, "Okay." Anytime we figured out what she's doing, we were all willing to play along. So he sat down. Here came Dad into the room, and he goes, "What do you want?" And she went, when he got into the room, she went and she slammed the door shut. "You're all in here now." She went back in the room, and he looked at us and said, "What is she doing?" And when we explained it to him, he's like, okay, he was going to prolong the play. So when she came back to the room, he said, "Well, what do I do now?" And she said, pointed to the rocking chair in the room and said, "Sit." So he said, okay. So he sat in the chair, and they looked at her and said, "What do I do now?" She looked at every one of us around the room, all around. She looked back at my dad and said, "Talk. Like we should have known. You're all here together now." So we sat the rest of that night in the bedroom and talked, because that's what she wanted. She wanted all of us together, all the people that she knew and loved. We were all right there with her. That's what I wanted when I prayed this prayer. And I was so amazed that I had only used this little book 2 or 3 times, but I was sincere in praying for my family. And 20 some years later, I picked it up and realized God didn't forget those prayers. I might have forgotten them. I forgot the whole book. I forgot what I'd written in it. God didn't forget. He didn't forget. There was in that golden bowl in heaven, and the incense was going, and he's saying, she prayed, she prayed, she prayed. And these prayers, God can answer, and he can do a lot of things, but he cannot force anybody to accept him. That's why I was so amazed. It took them accepting him, not just him doing something. Yet he had done it. He had answered all those prayers. And I'd like to tell you something. If you are my family, or you're someone close to me and I feel like you're my family, if you have my name, or you're related to me in any way, or you're close to me and you're a good friend of mine, even you might not think I know who you are. If you're, say, children of some of my cousins, you might not even know me or even remember me, or even think I've ever met you, or, oh, I was a baby the last time. Yeah, they don't know anything about me or remember me. Oh, yes, I do. If I have ever seen you, a picture of you, heard of you, know your name, you're on my list. I don't have a written one anymore. I don't physically write it down. But there are many of you. You're my family. If you're related to me at all, or I love you for some reason because you're a close friend of mine, you're on my list. If you are not serving God, or I'm not sure if you are, you're on my list until I see some evidence. And even if you are a Christian, I still pray for you. But if I'm not sure, you're on my list. I'm still praying for you. I won't stop praying for you. And guess what? Those prayers are not going to die. They're going to stay with God. Even if something happened to me, they're staying with God. Even if you think I forgot, even if I did forget and I didn't do it anymore, I've already done it. I've already done it. And they're already before God. And he will not forget his prayers, or his answers to the prayers that I prayed that I forgot. He didn't forget. So if you think, oh, she must not mean me, I'm some distant cousin or something, if I've heard of you, I am praying for you. And any children, grandchildren that you have may not even know their names, because if it's far enough away, but I'm praying for you. And you'll stay on my list. And I'll keep praying for you. Because see, I had a little proof here with that little book. God answered that. Now, I don't think writing it down is necessarily some magic way to get something. That wasn't it. What was it was I prayed. I prayed and I believed. I know I believed because I wrote a column to check it off. Obviously, I believed I was going to check you off when you became a Christian. And I did. I have another cousin on my mom's side of the family. Her name's Lisa. She watched one of my videos where I sang the song for my dad's side of the family, cousin Rhonda. And she said, "Oh, my turn. I want you to sing a song for me now." And I said, "Oh, sure. Just tell me what you want me to sing." She had heard me sing a song a long time ago. I know we sang this in the early 1990s at church. And she said, "I haven't heard that song in so long and I love it." And because I am the great keeper of all things, meaning I don't throw anything away, I still have the cassette tape. Yep, cassette tape. Haven't seen a cassette tape before? Oh, let me show you. Just in case you're from the new generation, this is a cassette tape, and it has music on it. It really does, or talking, or whatever you put on it. So I have the cassette tape, and I even have a cassette tape player. I have a record player and records too, but well, we'll discuss what that is later. This song's called "In the Midst of It All." This is a great song. I haven't sang it in a long time, and I'd like it to bless you. I don't have the music for this one to play the piano, but since I have it, accompaniment tape, that's actually a lot easier. So I'm going to sing that. I'm going to sing that for you now. What have you done to deserve all this? Curse God and die. What advice for a man who had trusted God most all of his life. Then Job speaks as he stands among the broken down domain. In the midst of it all, I shall stand and not fall, and bless his name. In the midst of it all, in the midst of it all, I found hope that will never let me fall. Jesus heard my call, and by me stood tall, and in him I stand complete in the midst of it all. Should the day ever come when everyone bows their head to cry, and when man has done all that man can do, and I'm left to die, well, even if I'm surrounded by affliction's greatest pain, in the midst of it all, I shall stand and not fall, and bless his name. In the midst of it all, in the midst of it all, Jesus heard my call. I know he heard my call because he's answered a whole list of prayers I had. He'll hear your call. Don't stop calling out to him. You know, sometimes, and I know you've heard this, sometimes we get so impatient. Well, we're just human. We get impatient. We want every prayer answered. And we hear sometimes we have to wait. But I'm telling you, sometimes you have to wait decades. Why? I don't know. He'll have that answer one day. But I know those prayers do not die. He never forgets them. He is not just saying, I'm not going to do it. He's got it before him as an incense at his throne. At his throne. He's got those 24 elders standing there holding golden bowls. That's pretty important if he has them standing there doing that. All night and day. Now there's not night and day in heaven, but our night and day. That's always before him. Always before him. His prayer, his answers to your prayers. He has that ready. He has it. I don't know why he waits, but he knows. He's already got it planned. He's already got it out. There's a reason for it. Maybe it's because somebody's going to witness it that needed to see it. I know he heard the prayers that I've prayed. Some from when I was a child, because he answered them a couple of decades, maybe later. And there's still a few on there, a couple on there. That's been a long time. Those prayers are still there. Don't forget to pray. And if you are praying, I knew beyond a doubt, asking for my family to be saved, that's God's will. I didn't have to wonder if that's something God wanted. Boy, I knew that was something God wanted. And it was. If you are praying what's in the Word and you are praying His will, even something difficult like that, it will be done. He's got it planned. I pray you have a good week. Please share my video. I want more people to hear. I want more people to share. I want it to reach the person God needs to speak to today. It might be you. It might be more. Have a good week. Don't forget to go to church. If you didn't get to go to church, now you had church. Read your Bible. Just a little. Open it up. Read something. Start at the beginning. Start in the book of John. Start somewhere. Start reading. If you say, I don't understand it, find me. I can help you. I don't understand everything, but I sure read a lot. If I can't find the answer, I'll find somebody who does. We'll find it. We'll hunt. I'll help you. Have a relationship with God. You need Him. If you don't think you do, one day you will. Because we live in a fallen world and things are not good here. And if you haven't needed Him yet, you will. Don't wait. Already have a relationship with Him. Already have the prayer. Already have the strength. Because it's coming. It's like living in Florida. You know, hurricanes come. We miss it a lot. Sometimes we don't get it. But this is where we live, where hurricanes go. They call it Hurricane Alley. This is kind of like where we live in this world. Turmoil comes. It's coming. Don't wait. Don't wait for it to come. Build your strength now. Build a relationship with God now. Turn your life over to God now. God bless you. I'll see you next time, and I love you.